Hey everyone, I am live now. I said I was going to come on just about 10 minutes early. So if you guys can come on and ask your skincare questions. Let's see here. So before we get started, are there any things that you guys, like where are you guys coming from actually? I don't know where anybody is coming from. Charlotte, North Carolina. Nice. Melbourne. Wow. Australia. Tampa Bay. Canada. Nigeria. Whew. In 4:30 in the morning in India. San Francisco, Oakland. Okay, so fellow California people. Small town in South Carolina. Nice. Okay, let's see what time it is here. Okay, so let's get started. What can you do to reduce those brown spots on the side of my face? So those are called lentigines. A lot of times those are age related. The one thing that you can do is use a sunscreen that has lighteners and brighteners and layer that. Use the exfoliants at night. The more common types of lightening agents that you can use are AHAs or hydroquinone and things like that. The thing about it is when it's in the summertime, it's a little bit tricky because the very things that lighten the dark spots and even out the skin tone can also bring about more hyperpigmentation later on with the sun. So because it makes your skin more photosensitive. So what I always try to do with my own clients is to have them use exfoliants that you don't leave on your skin, that you exfoliate your skin. It may be even the same skincare ingredients. And then, but rinse off and do that at night. And then also use a lot of natural lighteners and brighteners. Now, I'm not someone who is against hydroquinone or anything like that, or against Retin A. It just depends on the person. Not every skincare ingredient is beneficial for every skin type. So generally speaking, those skincare ingredients can be helpful, but it doesn't mean every single person can benefit from that. Oh, wow, look at all this. Even Rita, she says, I'm so depressed due to my melasma. I think you have to understand that as an individual, whether you're a man, woman, young person, you have to work on qualities that are inside as well, because eventually there'll come a time when all of us cannot use our appearance. Appearance fades a little bit every day. Then you become these people who have nothing to offer and are just empty shells of human beings. I've had clients in the past where mental health wise, they were not in a good place and they would share some things with me. And so that has a lot to do with, the nice glow on your skin as well. When somebody is happy and in a good place. How to get rid of acne marks fast. Vitamin C is a morning. Usually it's morning time, especially if you are using any type of retinoids or anything that can sensitize your skin. Vitamin C should be in the morning. You have to be careful. Your skin, there's clinical studies that have shown that the pH of your skin has to be acidic. Your pH of your skin actually has to be 4.6 for that ascorbic acid to be effective. And you have to look at your vitamin C serum. If it's a vitamin C serum, it has to be paired with something that makes it stable enough. The darker your skin is and the darker the acne scars are, the longer it's going to take. And the more sun exposure that you get on those acne scars, the darker that they get faster. So it's really important to avoid sun exposure. That's one. And also to exfoliate a lot. Treatment for dry with fungal acne. Fungal acne is yeast overgrowth on the skin. And so that bacteria feeds off of sugar in the fatty acids in the sebum of our skin. So a lot of times when you use antifungal products, they really dry out your skin because they're trying to dry out the oil, because the sugars and the fatty acids in the oil is what feeds the bad bacteria. So it's treating the symptom. So you can use antifungal things, but it's the pH of the sebum. So if you're eating a lot of sugar and a lot of processed food, the pH of your sebum can be affected. The bad bacteria feeds off of that. So if you start eating like healthier foods, so what happens then is that not only do you produce less sebum, the pH of the sebum changes. You're basically starving off the bad bacteria and increasing the healthy microbiome of your skin. There are probiotic skincare that you use. I've done some clinical like research things, read some papers on that, and they said it does work temporarily, but you have to keep using that because it doesn't stay on the skin if you don't have enough good bacteria on your skin. Okay, if you have acne around your jawline, generally speaking around ovulation, that is usually androgen driven, which is a male hormone, and it's usually related to stress because when you do stress, the androgen levels can go up in your blood, and that can drive, ultimately leading to changing the pH of your sebum and actually making it stickier. When using Retin A and peeling, should I continue to use even when peeling? But that's actually normal that you're starting to peel, because what it does is it actually increases skin cell turnover rate. You really need to avoid the sun. You have to remember, it's still allowing some amount of sunscreen to get through. It's not 100% because sunscreen is not opaque. Okay, can we mix benzoyl peroxide and adapalene instead of epiduo gel? That depends on what type, because you have to remember, like benzoyl peroxide, is it in a gel? Is it in a cream? Is it in a lotion? And for what type of breakout? What products to use for microneedling at home? You do have to be really careful with microneedling. I've had some people use the microneedling and they started to get hyperpigment patches right here. So it's really important how you do it, what type you use, as well as what serum that you are using it with. If you have been using Retin A in the last 6 months, because it does stay in your system, and you use microneedling, you can increase more sensitivity and the inflammation is actually more. So you do have to be careful with that. Blackheads and sebaceous filament, 2% salicylic acid question. Okay, so blackheads work better with salicylic acid. And then if it's whiteheads or comedones, it's glycolic acid. So how that works is beta hydroxy acids work to dissolve the oil and also the skin cells. The AHA is so small, the molecule is so small, it can actually dissolve the intercellular cement or the glue that the skin cells are held together with. So you need both, typically. What do you recommend for icebox scars? Caramel. Oh, you mean ice pick scars? If they're pretty deep, you can do microdermabrasion with that, but you have to be careful because if it's not done right, I have seen clients who've come to me where they had the hyperpigmentation from the microdermabrasion to address the ice pick scars. So you have to be really careful. Do a consultation first. They have to see how your skin responds with the microdermabrasion first. And then if your skin responds well, then you go back and you have to go slower. Because when you inflict a sudden amount of inflammation, especially for darker skin people, you will produce more pigments. Where people on the lower part of the Fitzpatrick scale, they get their inflammation, obviously they turn red. Over time, their skin tends to get more fine lines and wrinkles. Okay, so for those of you who have like a scar on your face, so I'm not talking about like acne scars, but like maybe like a cut or something like that. If the scar was deep enough that you have irregular striations, so the collagen and elastin fibers are irregular, so it looks different, obviously, from the rest of the surrounding tissue, you can exfoliate to help minimize that. But if that scar is deep, you can help flatten it out over years, but it's never going to look completely the same as your regular skin. You can consult with someone to do laser or some more invasive procedures, but to expect it to look exactly the same as your face or wherever on your body, that's not going to happen. Oils like rosehip oil for acne scarring. Okay, so for acne scarring, the rosehip oil is really doesn't do much for hyperpigmentation. A lot of times I'll hear acne people say, you know, I heard that this oil really works, but all it did was make my skin break out even more. You guys are already producing enough oil. That is not your issue. Your issue more than likely is the hydration, is water. So when you add more oil, what can happen is, because those oils have their own essential fatty acids, omega-3, 6, and 9s in there, you can actually increase more bacteria growth. Because remember, bacteria, the bacteria that causes the acne, what it's feeding on is the fatty acids and the sugars in the oils. Mineral types is better for hyperpigmentation and melasma. Generally speaking, because I haven't seen your skin, mineral, especially zinc oxide, is a natural anti-inflammatory agent. And so I would say if you have hyperpigmentation and you're using other things to lighten the hyperpigmentation, you should use a mineral-based sunscreen, because chemical sunscreens, especially oxybenzone and avobenzone, and octocrylene, they tend to cause stinging in the skin for some people. Ingredients and products that would be good for me. I have dry skin and I'm also in early menopause because of cancer treatment. Okay, I'm only 20 years old and want to avoid wrinkles. So what's happening with her is her challenge from a typical 20-year-old. Her issue is somebody who's in their like mid 40s to 60s. So what's going to happen over time is you need to use a lot more ingredients that have essential fatty acids, because as the estrogen drops, the estrogen drives the collagen and elastin formation, but also we start to lose that essential fatty acids. And so then our skin, it can't stretch as much. It gets drier, it gets crinklier. You're probably going to have to use some things to stimulate the fibroblasts to create the collagen and elastin. So if you have tougher skin, microdermabrasion, microneedling, anything that kind of stimulates your skin to regenerate new skin. And then also too with your diet. Because if you eat more foods that have higher in omega-3s, such as salmon, tuna, flax seeds. Here's the thing with flaxseed. If you eat flax seeds, you don't digest them. They come out whole. So make sure it's ground to get the omega-3s. So if you eat a lot more of that, that will not only help with reducing inflammation, but it actually helps with producing more essential fatty acids in your skin. Neha, I've been taking vitamin A supplements and I've been experiencing acne. Why is it so? Look to see if it has anything in there with DHEA in there too, because sometimes I've seen some vitamins with that and that affects your testosterone levels. Dark circles, hollow under the eyes. So some people just have them genetically, and other times as we get older, you know, we have less collagen, so you can see, so the blood is pooling underneath our eyes, especially when we are tired. You will see some eye creams and eye gels that have, you will see vitamin K and caffeine. It basically constricts the blood flow, you know, of your capillaries so that it does temporarily go away. And if you use things that stimulate, so those machines, you know, that stimulate like circulation, that kind of helps, like the MyoLift, that helps with that as well. How do you determine how many times you should exfoliate weekly based on dry, combo, oily skin? So part of it is how sensitive you are and what type of exfoliant that you are using. Sensitive skin can be tricky because you don't want to inflame the skin, especially if they have rosacea or telangiectasia, which is like, you know, broken capillaries. So here is a clue for people who tend to have oilier skin. If you tend to get like those flesh-colored bumps on your skin, which is a desquamation issue, you should be exfoliating more, because basically what that means is those bumps that you have, it's because the dead skin cells are not, they're getting clogged in there with the oil. So it's not a bacterial issue, because if it was bacteria, it would be red and have pus in them. And they would start to hurt even. So the ones that are just congestion, that needs more. And then combo skin, you can even exfoliate in the areas that you tend to be oily more, which is the, you know, forehead, nose, and chin area as well. So I tend to exfoliate less in the summertime and then I exfoliate a little bit more in the winter time, and then try to hydrate and keep my skin more moisturized. Sort of broke me because it made me conscious. If you have pigmentation due to, that's essentially a hormone-driven hyperpigmentation, that is usually tougher because the hormones is what's driving the hyperpigmentation. So there's a clinical study that I actually put in one of my videos where they said if you eat a diet heavy in like fattier cuts of meat, processed foods, dairy, cheeses, that actually increases the bad cholesterol levels in your blood, that not only it increases your androgen levels and makes your sebum stickier and thicker, it actually increases hyperpigmentation. So that is something where you may have to deal with diet, not because of the hyperpigmentation, but the hormones that drive the hyperpigmentation. So you may want to look into that, especially for hypothyroidism. Let's see, what do you suggest for fine lines under the eye? I just turned 33, by the way. Okay, so if it's fine lines, you can slow down the fine lines before they turn into wrinkles, because once they turn into wrinkles, it is more difficult. However, there are some machines now that can actually help smooth that even out more. And it depends on what type of skin that you have, because some people do really well if they have fine lines and wrinkles and then they use Retin A for a little bit. Other people, it causes a lot of inflammation. It depends on your skin, on what you want to do. Is LED and light therapy effective in removing hyperpigmentation and wrinkles? I want to invest in a device, but they are so expensive. Is it worth it? Okay. It depends on what kind, and it depends on what type of light and also what type of machine and what type of hyperpigmentation. If you have melasma, and it has heat where you can actually feel the heat, that is typically not recommended. But it's hard for me to say because there are some that work better. And this is the thing, is that when you introduce light therapy, you have to be consistent to see the results and to keep the results going. And it depends on what type of light therapy. Because, okay, so for example, if you are taking birth control pills, or some type of hormonal pills, and your hyperpigmentation is driven by hormones, and you keep using that light therapy and you're like, it's not working, it's because the hormones are driving that hyperpigmentation. So in that last video I did, the silent cause of hyperpigmentation, it actually said 10 to 20% of the hyperpigmentation is actually caused by medications that people take. Hot showers, cold showers, or warm showers? Obviously, people like to take hot showers in the wintertime, but that tends to dry out the skin. The hotter the water is for hyperpigmentation, that's usually not recommended. Occasionally, I get white flaky patches on my skin, then they disappear, and then they come back some. It has been like this for years. Any advice? That sounds like it could be eczema or psoriasis. What I would do is I would pay attention to what you have been eating, and then when you get them. I have a question about iron oxide. I know that they provide added sun protection when used with mineral sunscreen, but what if they are applied alone? The FDA actually said that makeup powders that say that they have SPF 30 or 50, you really still need to use sunscreen, because very few people are going to wear so much powder, that it covers the skin well. So I still would use sunscreen on top of that. Okay, in my middle 60s and 40 former years of smoking and sun damage, the past 10 years after applying prescription strength Retin A nightly and Jack Black moisturizer with sunscreen daily, my appearance has improved. However, gravity isn't kind, as I too am experiencing saggy skin and turkey neck. Please share your comments and criticism, and thank you for okay. That saggy skin obviously is because of collagen and elastin. Obviously, you can use some topical products, But I'm getting more and more people saying that they've tried Retin A and only worked for this, but not on my neck, blah, 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 blah. So if it's on your neck, so you can actually help with the muscles. There are some things that you can do to help firm up your neck area. Yes, there are some. But it also depends on how, what it looks like. You may want to catch this next video because I actually focus on the sagginess of my neck. So we can talk about that. What's your opinion on white tea versus green tea for skin? Also, what about centella? Have you heard about MPEL, which has MEP and mimics estrogen for menopausal skin? Also, there's a lot of skincare products that have green tea in there, and it'll say green tea extract, Camellia sinensis, or they will use the it'll say epigallocatechin, or there's different ways, and it's usually lower. A lot of clinical studies have shown that the green tea extract doesn't absorb as well into the skin unless you use niacinamide in there. So I think it's good that products have green tea in them. However, I think it's more effective when you drink green tea. I think that's way more effective than applying it. I don't think it's as effective as L-ascorbic acid or other products. Do I recommend a diamond peel? You mean a diamond microdermabrasion? If so, it depends on the skin type. People who have fair skin, because they are so afraid of aging, I think it's a cultural thing that sometimes they overdo it, and then they inflame their skin unnecessarily, and then they end up prematurely aging their skin. Someone who says she's pregnant with bad acne. That's a little bit iffy because she's pregnant, and then bad acne, right? Because that's hormonally. You want her to be safe. You can still use salicylic acid because the levels of it are so low. So you can still use salicylic acid. You can use glycolic acid. The thing that's different about with pregnant women is that your skin may become more sensitive or actually even change whilst you are still pregnant. Melasma on dark skin that are safe while breastfeeding. Also, if you are able to do a beauty breastfeeding mom. Okay, so people who are breastfeeding, I don't recommend that you use hydroquinone while you're breastfeeding. There are other things that you can use that are much safer. The only thing is it just depends on your skin. I would concentrate more to use things that like vitamin C or mushroom extract. So somebody said, I heard a dermatologist say microneedling will make my melasma worse because I'll only be pushing the pigment deeper into the skin. No, that's not how that works. Pigments come from the bottom up. It works its way up into the skin, not like pushing it down. However, if there is more inflammation, it can, not that it will, be not because you're pushing the pigments further down, but because you're inflaming the skin. And then later on, anytime you inflame the skin, you can stimulate more hyperpigmentation. How can we treat hypopigmentation caused due to a chemical peel? So hypopigmentation, not hyper. So hypo, meaning there's lack of pigment. So when you have hypopigmentation caused by something, that's irreversible. That means that melanocyte has died. So as we get older, sometimes our melanocytes die and they don't regenerate. And so then that specific area right there won't have any pigments. So if you did something where you have a scar deep enough and it's white, so hypopigmentation, that's it. There's nothing you can do. Okay, lasers that are suitable for black skin tones. Okay, so there's a whole array of dark skin tones, right? I haven't seen your skin, but you have to make sure that the person that you're going to is really experienced. Like maybe they have some photos of before and after, because the most common complaint of people who have dark skin is when they do laser, it comes back. And then, because they got burned, it's really stubborn. Oh, this is the other thing. It depends on your skin's history. So if your skin has incurred a lot of chemical peels, microdermabrasion, both, so you have a history of inflaming your skin will tell you the history. If you have not ever done microdermabrasion or acid peels or any of these things, and then you're like, I've got this melasma, I'm just going to go for the strongest thing, I advise against that, because you don't know how your skin has responded because you've never done anything. So now you're going to go from 0 to 60. I would start slowly and see how your skin responds and then go from there. The two skin types that I am really careful with based on my experience is very, very sensitive skin. So your Fitzpatrick 1s and 2s, and then my very dark skin, because typically the stereotype is that darker skin is more tolerant, which is true, and it's thicker. It's not like they're getting red and fine lines and wrinkles because they typically have thicker skin. It's hyperpigmentation. That's what happens when you inflame dark skin. Do we really need hyaluronic acid? Hyaluronic acid is a humectant, and some skin types will respond much better with that than glycerin. Some people respond much better with glycerin. Other people will respond much better with polyglutamic acid. It just depends. You don't really need hyaluronic acid. You may need some, based on your skin, you may need some humectants, and hyaluronic acid may work better for your skin, but do you really need it? Probably not. Bit like light oil with 2% salicylic acid twice a day. Is it better to apply it just as is, or mix it in a moisturizer? I would probably, okay, if you're using it for blackheads, don't mix it in a moisturizer. I mean, if you want the full efficacy of it, put it on there, let it set, and make sure it's completely dry. Then go to the next step. I've tried so many things like AHA, BHA, etc., but still can't get rid of blackheads and whiteheads. What to do? When people have had blackheads for a really long time and they just can't get them out, I do recommend, and you've tried everything, you need to go get a facial. You don't need a microdermabrasion. There's a process where they can use a scaling, it's called scaling fluid, and it's alkaline, and it softens the hardened sebum in there so that they can do extraction. So manually getting out all of that and then starting over with a good skincare regimen where you're exfoliating and using AHAs and BHAs to keep that from happening. But some people have so much in there, it's just better to get a lot of that out and then start from there. That would be a dream. Oh, Victor, that is a challenge. You are right about that. The physical sunscreen. You know, I'm not sure, because there's a couple companies that do have it for darker skin, and a couple of my clients used it, and some of them liked it, some of them didn't like it. And Victor, I don't know how you'd feel about using a, makeup where it's tinted, and then if you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. So yeah, I understand that is a challenge. I'm 38, male, high T, oily skin. Stopping acne with peels and scrubs seems to be aging my skin. Yeah, or at least causing inflammation. Is there a more gentle way to keep my skin clear? Okay, you got to get your pH right. Chances are you're probably using the cleanser that's too alkaline. It strips the acid mantle, and to protect your skin, and you're a guy, because guys tend to produce more oil and thicker oil than women do typically. Because once you get that pH right for your skin and hydrate your skin, you will actually produce less oil. What is called the alkaline treatment? A lot of products out there. I did a video on if you're using skincare products and they don't seem to be working, it can be the pH. So there was a clinical study where they took 400, I think it was 425 or 600 and something products or whatever, and randomly did the pH of it, and they averaged out, and so this is excluding sunscreen and hair treatments. Most of it was it averaged a pH of 6, and our skin optimally likes 4.5 to 5.5. And on a pH scale, it doesn't sound like a lot, but even like moving it just a little bit is is a lot. And everyone's skin is usually optimally within that range. And that is why some people, you just change just a little bit of their product and they break out like crazy. And other people can put all kinds of stuff on their face and nothing happens. And that is because typically their pH of the skin is more acidic. So that keeps the bacterial level and the yeast levels down. Apply moisturizer before or after BHA? Oh, you have to put the BHA because it's a treatment. It's considered, you have to put that on first, directly on your skin, because the lipids in the moisturizer will prevent the BHA, because it sounded like that was like water-based. So you want to put that on first. Could wooden extraction harm, tear the skin? If you go to someone who doesn't know what they're doing, yeah, it could. Dead Sea mud products for facial skin. I mean, I've heard that Dead Sea can help with like detoxing and alleviating puffiness and that type of thing, but it just depends on the brand and what you are trying to treat. One thing that you'll notice that when you use a lot of those salt-based, they're alkaline. So it makes your skin really, really smooth. People who are pH sensitive, like let's say you're using a lot of acid-based products to address breakouts, and then you use like a Dead Sea salt thing that makes it alkaline, because remember, in pH-wise, in chemistry, alkaline and acid pH mixed together neutralizes. So it doesn't work. So you do have to be careful with that. Acne and Keratosis Pilaris on his arms help. Okay, so if your son has acne where it's a lot of red bumps and pustules, that's definitely a bacterial issue. So some of the things that you can do, obviously, is if he sweats a lot, he has to change his shirt a lot, he has to exfoliate back there, which is going to be hard, obviously, because it's the back. If he has a lot of like cystic acne, that is mostly driven by hormones. If it's like the little red, pustules, not cystic, that can be addressed by lowering the pH, so reducing the amount of bacteria on the skin. If he has Keratosis Pilaris like on the back of his arms or like the back of his legs or something, that you can exfoliate there. And here's one thing. It may come back during the winter, but if he's exfoliating, getting the dead skin cell off and using things that increase the skin cell turnover rate, and that's one trick, is if he gets just like 10 minutes of unprotected UV rays on there, that helps alleviate the Keratosis Pilaris for sure. Retinol A is good for puffiness. No, not necessarily. It's Retin A and retinol products is basically it increases your skin cell turnover rate. So it has nothing to do with the puffiness. How would you treat hyperpigmentation around a surgical scar on the face? So that's considered post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. A lot of times you hear post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation for acne scars, but that's, if you listen to the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, it's basically any type of trauma that you've caused on your skin, whether it's a scrape, like a microcontusion, all the way to a surgical scar. Those are all post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So when you cause trauma to your skin is going to create hyperpigmentation as a way to protect itself. I would like to know how old that scar is, or if it's new, because as soon as the wound has healed, the better chances of it kind of blending into your natural skin. Well, it is kind of good that we are wearing a mask, because, I mean, in your case, because you can cover it, because, your face, your arms, your neck, and your chest is what gets sun exposure the most, right? So in the early stages of a scar, the less sun exposure that you have, the better. And if it's a deep scar, obviously there's going to be some hyperpigmentation. If you have fairer skin, you're lucky, because those tend to, the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation tends to fade faster than people who have darker skin or are able to tan. So once it's totally healed, so there's no scab or anything, you want to gently, slowly start exfoliating that area. Because the wound is still fresh, but it's healed, right? Because if you use exfoliants and you have a scab there, it's going to come off. So because it's still new, right? The tissue and the collagen and elastin is still new. If you gently start to exfoliate that area and stimulate more skin cell growth while it's still new, if you start doing that now and then following that by a lightening serum and putting sunscreen on and avoiding the sun, it may take a while, but like 2 years later, it will almost look like your same skin color. Now, the texture may be different, right? But you want to, if it's still new, your scars, you can significantly change it because it's still making new collagen and elastin. I wanted to ask about slightly bumpy skin all over the forehead that are not pimples or milia. Like, what are they? It's so frustrating. Kind of sounds like fungal acne, or it could just be that you have a desquamation. Desquamation basically means the skin cell turnover rate, that you may need to exfoliate that area more. So that sounds, it could be congestion. And all you need is like an exfoliant, a rinse-off exfoliant, and that you need to, so like glycolic, a blend of glycolic acid, lactic acid, or glycolic acid, lactic acid, salicylic acid in there will suffice. What eye creams would you recommend for crow's feet? Okay, so if you have crow's feet, there's different levels of crow's feet, obviously because of the wrinkles. Deeper the wrinkles are, there's only so much that you can do. You can use creams that will smooth out the skin, right? I would look for things that have peptides in them, oligopeptide, tripeptide, dipeptides. There is one that's called hexapeptide-8, and that is specifically one that is for fine lines and wrinkles. So I would probably look at that. If you have really oily skin and you tend to get milia, I wouldn't recommend eye creams until the wintertime, and then look for eye gels. Can you please expand on peptides? What do they do specifically? When you see dipeptide, it's basically like two, di like 2, peptide is 1, tripeptide is 3. And it's just different chains of like amino acids that are addressing specific skincare concerns. And just because you see peptide, it doesn't mean that it works. As a general answer, 30s and higher, that's when you want to start focusing on peptides. And this is part of the more advanced skincare before starting that will benefit the treatment. Radiofrequency has been proven in clinical studies to actually stimulate collagen and elastin for skin tightening. Is exfoliating one part of the face and not the other part of your sounds silly. I'm really starting to think different parts of my face need different routines. It depends on what you're saying. Like, obviously around the eyes, you want to avoid any AHAs around your eyes. And if you're using the leave-on exfoliants, the kind that you put on and you leave on there, you definitely want to avoid like your lip area right here, as well as your eye area. And if you find that you're more sensitive to the exfoliation, then yeah, I mean, if like people tend to be less sensitive exfoliating around the forehead and the nose area, and they tend to get like dermatitis or rashes on the less oilier areas, like the cheek area. Plan to buy the MD Duo Action Exfoliating Cleanser from your website. Can it be used daily? I would recommend, if you're going to use this like for your face or your body, I would use the best exfoliating cleanser, because that's more gel based. How do you close or tighten pores on dark skin? I think you mean tighten the pores on dark skin. In the pores, you're producing sebum. And if you're exfoliating, it lets the oil come up onto the top of the skin and spread more evenly. If you're not doing that and it doesn't dissolve the skin, it can stay in there, which then eventually becomes the sebaceous filament, right? Because it's solidifying. When it's in the pore and it stays in there, it will make the pore appear larger because it's stretching out, right? Because the waxy substance is inside the pore. So when you extract it, or when you're exfoliating it can come out freely, then obviously it gets smaller, right? So it appears smaller or smoother. How bad is it to bleach the facial hair or laser removal? I have a mustache. I don't want it, but I'm afraid to damage my skin. People who consistently bleach their skin, have you guys ever noticed that it starts to get dark right here? You have to be careful with that, because if you're going to use a chemical thing to bleach the hair, or you use Nair to remove it, or laser, depending on your skin type, you can actually now, so let's say you don't have any hair, what you have to be careful is if it gets darker, so it actually looks like you have hair, even though you don't have hair. So you have to be careful with that. Typically, it works better if you have a contrast that the laser can pick up the hair easier. So if you have fair skin and dark hair, that tends to work better. But you also have to ask them how, depending on what they're using, what is the likelihood that I can form hyperpigmentation later with this? So that's a risk. Using vitamin C with E and ferulic for first time. Initially great, now a little sensitivity, small red blotches around upper cheekbones. It's not bad, but worse since I added the Mu TGF booster. This is what I was saying, that sometimes for some people, when you mix and match anti-aging products, some people can develop a sensitivity. And if your vitamin C, which it kind of sounds like it is, crispy sage, don't you love that name, crispy sage? If it's L-ascorbic acid and not a vitamin C derivative, so vitamin C derivatives tend to be more gentler on the skin, but if you're actually using one that's L-ascorbic acid, I'm not really sure what is actually in the TGF booster. That may be causing a little problem, but it may not be. It may just be the L-ascorbic acid. So I'd have to look into that and see. And what you're using before. Will you ever do a video series for men's skincare? Okay, I did one where I said the difference between men and women. So just to kind of give you a foundation of why men's skincare is different. I don't have a lot of men watching me. According to the YouTube analytics, it's only like something like, it depends on the video, but it's like 11 to 16% of them watch. So, and men's skin is very different from women's skin, obviously. I'll give you this one tip. I don't know if you have facial hair or not, or you're shaving. The one thing that causes men to have oilier skin and can have more problems is actually their shaving cream, because it is, when you use most typical shaving creams and then you rinse off your face, the reason why your skin is so tight is because it strips your acid mantle. And so then, like guys who have oily skin, if they do that and they don't put any lotion on or anything, usually by a couple hours later, they're like super oily because they have totally dehydrated their skin. So part of it is the alkaline is because it's trying to soften the whiskers to shave. But you need to find one that is more pH balanced for men's skin. Niacinamide for dry, acne-prone skin. Some people who have breakout-prone skin break out more with niacinamide, depending on what the formulation is. Other people have worked well with niacinamide. Now, if you have the pustules or more severe acne, what I have found with my clients, doesn't mean you, it actually gets worse for a while. So they back off from it. So if you have like active pustules, I would not use the niacinamide until it's calmed down a little bit more. Would you help? What would help with sagging skin around the sides of the mouth? That's one of the videos that's coming up. I'm using this one, radio frequency. It's a 5th generation one with here. So I am going to start using it for here. And then I got saggy right here. I got saggy skin right here. You can't Can you tell right here with the crinkling? See if you can kind of see that crinkling going on. So I'm going to use it with that because I actually did some research on radio frequency and talked about nanometer. I mean, like, I'll put the link in there for those of you who are like science nerds. I think of benzyl alcohol. It is alcohol. It's an ingredient. Oh, I have to scroll down. It's an ingredient in timeless products. It's not a bad ingredient. I mean, everybody gets so scared when they hear alcohol, or I don't think it's a bad ingredient per se. I've had 2 clients where they had eczema on their face, and they said that they experienced more flare-ups when they used products that had benzyl alcohol. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You also want to see where it is in the ingredients list too. Is it true that people of color should try and not use AHA and use BHA instead? Well, they do 2 different things. No, it just depends. It depends on what you're using it for. Unless you have a sensitivity, but they're complementary. And I use sunscreen every day. It can be a computer. I have like the medium color of skin. What you're talking about is blue light. So blue light has been shown to age skin faster. It's and sunscreen, most sunscreens cannot block blue light unless it actually says it has blue light. I do use this Urban Anti-Pollution Essence that's on my website. I use that because of their products, that the ingredients in there, that they have research papers that have shown to neutralize the blue light. So I use that more now, and I don't wear as much sunscreen. I use more of that because I'm in front of a computer more. Which is worse for normal to dry skin using tretinoin? Oh, trans epidermal water loss or putting a barrier cream on or before tretinoin. I don't experience irritation letting skin fully dry first. Hopefully I understand it right. If you are experiencing TUL, trans epidermal water loss, due to the tretinoin, you need to put the tretinoin on first, always, and then you can put a barrier repair cream on after the tretinoin. Because when you use a lipid-based product, it inhibits absorption rate, if that makes any sense. Water-based products or thinner products need to go on first on your skin. Then you can put on your cream. You don't ever want to put the cream on and then like a vitamin C above it, or like, you know, hyaluronic acid. It needs to go on first, okay? Just turned 40 and suddenly I have crazy dry patches on my cheeks. I've never had dry skin before, so any recommendation for must-haves in my skin? It could be dermatitis. Like I'm not sure because I don't know what it looks like. And what kind of products you're using for your exfoliant. Okay, let's see. My wife would like to know what a good body cream lotion to use after the shower. Oh, that's not greasy and not leave pimples. Thanks. If she is prone to pimples on her body, JM, then she needs to look for something that's like more water-based and not have like petroleum or lanolin. That tends to be heavier of an occlusive agent. And so that can, so for example, if she's pimple prone or breakout prone on her body, then CeraVe should probably not be used, because I noticed that some people complain about that. So maybe UB would probably be good. YU-BE. There's one that's non-fragrance and one that has like a menthol smell, but it evaporates really fast. So that only has 2 ingredients in there. It has glycerin, which is a humectant, and what was it called? Sodium myristate, which is helps repair restore the skin's barrier, and that's it. So that probably may work for her. There is some debate about facial scrubs with April. Yeah, I would avoid that. Some people who use them say they have great results. Is there any scientific research on this? So they can cause microcontusions in the skin. Microcontusions meaning that you can't really tell or you can't feel it, but they cause these little tiny scrapes in your skin. So you want to use something. Yeah, I'm still doing my the beads. So if you want to use the beads, I don't really recommend the apricot and walnut shells. Powdered bamboo, the pulverized bamboo is fine. Double cleansing really necessary for a guy who has combination skin and only use sunscreen and not any makeup. Okay, so this is actually a really good question. Double cleansing. Okay, so it depends on a couple things. If you are shaving, okay, so that's one. If you have combination skin and you have sunscreen, so if you're using sunscreen and it is water resistant, then yes, you need to do a double cleanse because the sunscreen is very hard to break down. And, you know, like with zinc oxide, if it's just all 100%, it's a physical sunscreen. Sometimes when you're washing your face, you can actually start to, not too rough, but if you start to rub, it'll start to like roll off. So yes, double cleansing, especially if you are wearing sunscreen, you should double cleanse. And if you find that your skin is getting drier, then what you want to do is the first cleanser needs to be one that breaks down that sunscreen, and then the second one can be more of a hydrating cleanser. But again, it depends on how oily your skin is too. Is using micellar water, it means I have double cleansing. I'm not sure what that means, but if you want to use micellar water goes first, and then you can follow it up with a cleanser. Should I use a gel or cream face wash? Okay, typically, cream face wash should be for drier skin types. However, this can be confusing because a lot of glycolic acid-based face washes are cream and then it foams. So if you have oily skin, generally speaking, gel is better. Water-based is better. Cream, if it's just cream, it doesn't say glycolic acid, is typically for, and I'm, again, generally speaking, because there's so many products out there, is for drier skin types. Okay, so I've had questions like this where you have darker elbows or darker knees. You can do the exfoliating and treat it just like your face, but sometimes that is just genetically how that is. But if you have darker, rough elbows, I would basically use an exfoliating skin cleanser and then put a leave-on exfoliant on there, and then some, after that, put some lightening serums on there. On those areas, that's where I would alternate using body lotions, because you can't mix and match body lotions with a, well, I guess you could put the body lotion on after the serum, the lightening serum. Okay, this person is asking tallow for moisturizer or ghee. Okay, so that's an occlusive agent. It's not a hydrating agent. There's nothing there's no humectants in tallow or ghee. That's simply, so it's an occlusive agent, basically meaning you have to already have, you must have already applied a hydration product on top, or your skin's already hydrated, and then you put that on top. But I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I would actually opt for, if you want something that has a lot of essential fatty acids, I would look more for just a natural like oil, like depending on what your skin condition is. So like rosehip oil or sea buckthorn oil, or if you have oilier skin, tomato seed oil. So something like that versus tallow or ghee. Good first cleaner to break down zinc sunscreen. That depends on, if you have oily skin, then I would use a cleansing oil if you, and you're not breakout prone. So if you're not breakout prone, on oil or micellar water and then a foaming cleanser. If you have dry skin, you can just do a double cleanse 2 times with a cream-based cleanser, and the first one would be non-foaming. Spider veins, topical treatments preferred. My wife has done sclerotherapy, but this seems to make the veins darker. Oh, is there a better treatment or vitamin? There's no superficial product that you can apply on there for spider veins. The only thing that you could do is do that or laser. The more spider veins somebody has, I mean, yes, some of it comes with, you know, age, but there are some people who are more prone to that. And that is, you can prevent that, they say, with like, you know, strengthening the capillary walls and the veins. But as far as like a skincare product for spider veins, no, you have to do it with laser or with sclerotherapy. Eye cream really necessary if you have a good serum and moisturizer. Okay, so if you've ever noticed eye cream, you know, it's in these like small jars or tubes or whatever. It's more expensive per its size, right? More than like a cream. And it's one of the reasons why is because it, I mean, generally speaking, I can't speak for every eye cream or product. It has more concentrations of peptides in there, or emollients or hydration things in there. So that's why. Is it recommended for everybody? No. I mean, if you have like crinkly eye and it's really dry around here, some people are really prone to dryness around here, then yes, you know, that it certainly does help. If you're like 20 years old and you have no fine lines or wrinkles, and, you know, you're looking at this $80 eye cream, no. Do you know if it's better to use an oil or a face butter at night time over a moisturizer? Okay, so this is a tricky question because oil has the lowest amount of humectants. If you're talking about a moisturizer, meaning like a lotion or cream that has a balance of humectants, emollients, and occlusive agents, then once you put that oil on, you don't really get the benefit of the moisturizer, if that makes any sense. So again, I don't know what you mean by moisturizer, like a lotion or a cream, but you would typically put the moisturizer on first and then the oil, not the oil first. I'm 25, and what's the best thing for me to do to preserve my skin beautifully, effectively as I get older? Basically, what did you wish you knew at 25? Okay, so I started skincare at 12, just so you know. I grew up in Hawaii, a lot of sun exposure, and I grew up in Southern California too. At 19, I had this big, oh, you can't really tell in this light, really big melasma spot. And now I have to manage my hyperpigmentation. So when I was growing up in the 70s, there was no sunscreen. We put on baby oil, and we used one of those like reflector lights, you know, and we didn't use sunscreen. We put coconut oil and baby oil. So it would be sunscreen. I wish I knew what sunscreen. That's a big one because I wonder if I should dig up the photo. I can get really dark. I know it doesn't look like it because I put sunscreen on, but I can get really, really dark. And we didn't wear sunscreen. So I wish I knew that. I wish I knew more about the sunscreen. And is it okay to use a morning moisturizer with SPF? If you're saying the morning moisturizer has SPF, yes. But if you are saying to put a moisturizer and then an SPF on top, I would more likely get one that's formulated with like a moisturizer with an SPF. And the reason why is you can dilute the SPF with that moisturizer. It's not formulated to be used like that. So I recommend if you need a daytime moisturizer with SPF, I generally would say to get, because there's sunscreens. Let's keep it simple. Get a moisturizer, facial moisturizer with a sunscreen. That way you're not putting the moisturizer on, then you're putting on the sunscreen. There has been studies that have shown, I put the links in there a long time ago actually for one of these studies, to not do that, to actually get one product that has it's a moisturizer with SPF, and then you're done. Bada boom, bada bing. Yeah, let's eat. Okay, one more and then we're gonna go. Would you agree that the most important items for good skincare are a vitamin C serum, retinol, and sunscreen? And are there any topical vitamin C that is very stable and doesn't oxidize too quickly? Okay, generally speaking, yes, but there are some people who get sensitized with vitamin C. So if you get sensitized with ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, it's okay to use a vitamin C derivative. There's been clinical studies that have shown they may not work as effectively, meaning as fast. So vitamin C derivative can work just as well because some people work better with that. The other new up-and-coming antioxidant is astaxanthin. You guys need to look that up, okay? And astaxanthin is a lot less likely to cause any type of allergic reaction. And it is, I don't remember the numbers exactly. It actually had more antioxidant properties than coenzyme Q10 and alpha lipoic acid. So I will try to edit this down as much as possible. So if there's anything that you guys have learned, I have to answer these generally speaking, because I can't see your skin. Everybody has such individual skin, and I do not want to give advice that would do wonderfully for someone who has darker skin, but like will cause sensitivity issues on someone who has more sensitive skin or more fair skin, okay? Anyway, I need to go. I need to eat food, and I just wanted to do this. I really wanted to give you guys education, you know, and basically try to tell you guys, you know, its ingredients, its pH both for your skin and inside your body. So that is what I'm emphasizing, because I think I'm one of the older, I mean, I don't know everyone that's out there because I don't watch the beauty community, but I think I'm like one of the older ones out there. So if you guys are like post-menopausal skin, I'm right there with you guys. Like, high five. High five. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. And thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you soon.